Welcome back. We don't usually cover mayoral elections on this program, but we wanted to talk about one in particular because it's gotten national attention here in the U.S. We're talking about the Democratic primary for the New York City mayor's race. The polls are tight. The candidates are fascinating. Remember that New York is a Democrat stronghold still, so whoever wins the primary is set to become the next mayor.
Well, leading the polls at the moment is Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York. He's looking to make something of a political comeback. That's after resigning as governor back in 2021 amid those sexual misconduct allegations, which he denied. Cuomo's had some pretty big endorsements and some big money from former Mayor Michael Bloomberg, for example. Well, he is facing a stiff challenge from 33-year-old Zohran Mamdani. Now, he is a state assembly member and a democratic socialist who has seen a pretty remarkable rise in popularity amongst progressives. He's vocally pro-Palestinian and has received some big endorsements from Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Now, we should say in a distant third is the city comptroller, Brad Lander. But he was arrested by federal agents yesterday at an immigration courthouse, detained, when he says he was escorting a migrant. He was only released when the current governor, Kathy Hochul, arrived in person to intervene. So a lot to discuss. So let's bring in our panel again, Janae and Joe. And, we are talking about a mayor's race in New York, but it really does have some national implications. So, Joe, first of all, what do you think this race tells us? Seems to be getting a lot of attention across the U.S.
Sumi, as a former New Yorker myself, I think it's fair of me to comment to say in such a deep blue city and state, it's amazing that the best the Democrat Party can do is a choice between corruption and socialism. I mean, Andrew Cuomo resigned the governorship because 11 different women made sexual harassment allegations against him. And as far as his number two opponent, he wants to replace police officers with social workers, impose rent controls, and create government-run grocery stores. And so I think it's amazing to see New York's cycle, where it really has to hit rock bottom before it eventually turns to more common-sense conservative governance. But I guess it's not there yet, and so it's going to be an interesting few more years to see how far down the race to the bottom can get.
And Janae, how do you see it going? I mean, what's your prediction?
Well, I think what you see with this primary race is the Big Tent Democratic Party on display, right? We have Cuomo, who is the establishment candidate in this race, and we have Mr. Mamdani, who is the progressive candidate in this race. And I think we see with their endorsements from unions to elected officials what the party kind of looks like in terms of this party of ideas. You understand that for Cuomo, he's going to have the backing of establishment Democrats. He's going to have a much more conservative agenda. He's obviously has the name, ID, and recognition. And then on the progressive wing of the party, with Mr. Mamdani, we see that endorsements from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders shows the more progressive wing of the party, really making sure that they have a voice in this conversation. So I really think it more so highlights the spectrum of ideas. Even in a really blue state, we see that there's still a spectrum of ideas amongst primary candidates. We do know, of course, that even with the polls and the punditry, what matters is really the turnout of the voters in a race like this. And so we will see, the voters will have the final say.
But Janae, do you think it highlights the big tent of the Democrats or the real divisions among Democrats right now, also on a national level, the split between progressives and more, let's say, mainstream or conservative Democrat candidates?
Well, this is why you have primary elections, right? This is giving voters, even voters in blue states, very progressive states, an opportunity to choose their candidate. And the party primary process has always been one where voters have been able to choose which voice they want to represent them. And so we let the voters decide. We are not this is not a state where you're going to have a single candidate that's going to represent all ideas and all ideals of every voter in the state. So I think this is really more so an opportunity for discourse, for dialogue around key issues, and to let the voters have the final say.
Joe, do you think the rest of the country is looking at this race?
New York is typically ahead of the pack, but it's not always in a good way. I mean, look, we've seen the cycle. We've seen Ed Koch and David Dinkins and Mario Cuomo And at some point, New York gets to be high tax, it gets to be high crime, it loses jobs, and then it kind of changes the cycle. And so Rudy Giuliani and George Pataki and Mike Bloomberg kind of course correct things. So we're back in that downward cycle again, right? We got de Blasio, we got these two candidates. And so again, I think that New York has to kind of relearn those tough lessons, and then only when it does will it kind of course correct. But I think right now, for the foreseeable future, it's bad versus worse.
Okay, well, some New Yorkers might agree with you. Others are excited about this lineup that we're seeing. We should say, adding to the complexity of it all is the fact that it's ranked choice voting in New York City. So we'll see where that takes the mayoral race. But interesting to discuss it with you both. At this point, we